Mia Carter had always been told that a green-tinted sky meant trouble. Her grandfather, a weathered farmer who lived through more storms than most, used to say, "When the heavens turn the color of a bruise, something wicked comes riding the wind." That afternoon, as Mia lingered in Willowbrook Middle School's empty hallway to finish her science project, she noticed the unnatural hue creeping across the sky. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows on the linoleum floor. A deep, primal unease settled in her stomach. I should have gone home earlier, but she hadn't. And now as she stepped outside, the first fat raindrops struck her skin like icy needles. The town of Willowbrook was usually lively after school. Kids laughing, parents chatting, the distant hum of Mr. Henderson's lawnmower. But today, silence. The streets were deserted, as if the townsfolk had sensed the coming storm and hidden away. Mia tightened her grip on her backpack straps, her sneakers splashing through rapidly forming puddles. The wind howled like a wounded animal, tearing at her clothes and hair. She ducked under the sagging awning of Murphy's flower shop, its cheerful spring sale banner now a shredded, flapping ruin. That's when she heard it, a sound so faint it should have been lost in the storm's fury. A whimper, not human, not quite animal, something in between. Mia's breath hitched. Slowly she turned. There, beneath the skeletal remains of a rotting park bench, crouched a shadow. No, not a shadow. A dog. He was enormous. Even hunched, Mia could tell he'd stand nearly as tall as her waist. His fur was a wild tangle of storm cloud gray and charcoal black, matted with mud and something darker. Blood? But his eyes. Golden. Not just yellow or brown, actual gold, like twin coins gleaming in the storm's gloom. They watched her with an intelligence that made her skin prickle. Mia's fingers trembled as she reached into her backpack. Her half-eaten peanut butter sandwich was soggy, the bread sticking to the wax paper. She broke off a piece and held it out. The dog didn't move, didn't growl, just watched. Then, a slow, deliberate step forward. His nose, cold and wet, brushed her fingers. The moment their skin touched, Mia felt it. A spark, a connection. "You're coming with me," she whispered. The dog Storm, she'd later name him, tilted his head. Then, as if he'd understood every word, he pressed against her leg, his massive body radiating warmth. Mia didn't know it yet, but this was the moment her ordinary life ended, and the real storm was just beginning. Rain still sheeted down in icy waves as Mia and the massive dog trudged through Willowbrook's deserted streets. Every few steps, she glanced sideways at her unlikely companion, half expecting him to vanish like a phantom. But he stayed close, his shoulder brushing her thigh with each stride, his golden eyes scanning the shadows between houses. "What am I doing?" Mia thought, her fingers tightening in the damp fur of Storm's neck. "Mom's going to kill me." But the dog's presence was like a living furnace against the storm's chill. And with every step, the strange certainty grew. He's meant to be with me. The Carter house loomed ahead, its warm yellow windows, a stark contrast to the gloom. Mia hesitated on the porch, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Behind her, Storm sat perfectly still, rainwater dripping from his shaggy coat onto the welcome mat. Taking a deep breath, Mia pushed the door open. Mia Elizabeth Carter! Her mother's shriek could have shattered glass. Mia's mom stood frozen in the hallway, a laundry basket clutched to her chest. Her eyes bulged as they locked onto Storm. Behind her, Mia's little brother Jake peeked out, his mouth forming a perfect O. "That's not a dog," Dad said slowly, emerging from the kitchen with a half-peeled potato in hand. "That's a bear." After an hour of heated debate, and Storm proving he was housebroken by politely waiting by the back door, Mia's parents reluctantly agreed to let him stay, temporarily. "Until we find his owners," Mom stressed, eyeing Storm's mud-caked paws on her clean floors. That night, as Mia lay in bed with Storm curled at her feet, she noticed something odd. The house was too quiet. No creaking floorboard, no rustling trees outside. Even the old grandfather clock in the hallway had stopped ticking. And then, a whisper. Not from the hallway, not from outside, from inside the walls. Mia bolted upright. Storm was already on his feet, his golden eyes fixed on the far wall, his lips peeled back in a silent snarl. Something scratched from within the plaster. Morning light revealed 3 jagged lines gouged into the bedroom wall. Deep, parallel grooves that looked like claw marks. But they weren't there last night, and Storm's paws didn't have claws that size. Word spread fast in Willowbrook. By noon, half the town had just happened to walk past the Carter's house, craning their necks for a glimpse of the mysterious giant dog. Old Mrs. Peabody from the library pressed a weathered book into Mia's hands. "You'll want to read this, dear," she murmured, her milky eyes darting to Storm. The title, Legends of Willowbrook, Truths Buried in Time. Mr. Henderson, who ran the hardware store, crossed the street to avoid walking past Storm, and the town's stray cats, usually bold as brass, had vanished entirely. "Storm," Mia whispered that evening as she brushed the dirt from his matted fur. The dog's ears pricked. "Because you found me in the storm," she explained, working a burr from behind his torn ear. "And because I think you are one." Storm turned his massive head and licked her wrist once, a silent seal of agreement. 3 nights later, Mia woke to Storm standing over her, his teeth bared at the window. Outside in the moonlight, the grass was trampled in a perfect circle around the house, and pressed into the mud were footprints. Not human, not animal, something else entirely. Mia clutched Legends of Willowbrook to her chest as she pushed open the creaking library doors. The scent of old paper and dust filled her nose, and Storm pressed close behind her, his massive body radiating tension. Mrs. Peabody looked up from her desk, her milky eyes widening slightly at the sight of Storm. "Ah," she murmured, "you've come to learn about our black hound, I see." Mia's fingers trembled as she opened the book to a dog-eared page. The illustration showed a massive, shadowy canine with glowing golden eyes. Just like Storm, standing between a group of children and swirling dark figures. The caption read, "The Guardian Hound, Protector of the Innocent, Bane of the Shadow Walkers." As Mia read, a horrifying history unfolded. Every 50 years, something dark crept into Willowbrook from the surrounding woods. Children would disappear, leaving only strange claw marks behind. The only times the disappearances stopped were when a mysterious black dog appeared in town. The last recorded sighting was in 1972. Exactly 50 years ago, Mia's blood ran cold. She looked down at Storm, who stared back with knowing eyes. "He's not just a dog. He's here to protect me, to protect all of us." That evening, Mia waited until her parents were asleep before slipping out with Storm. The moon cast eerie shadows across the backyard as they approached the tree line. Storm moved differently now, his muscles coiled like springs, his ears constantly twitching. He sniffed the air, then suddenly went rigid. A branch snapped in the darkness, then another, and another. Something was moving toward them. Mia's breath came in short, panicked gasps as pairs of glowing yellow eyes appeared between the trees. They moved wrong, too fluid, too many joints, and the stench of rotting meat filled the air. Storm let out a growl so deep it vibrated in Mia's chest. His golden eyes began to glow, casting an unearthly light on the nightmare emerging from the woods. Tall, emaciated figures with 2 long limbs, claws that scraped against the ground with each step, mouths stretched in grotesque, unnatural smiles. "My..." A chorus of voices hissed. Storm lunged forward with a snarl, his body erupting in golden light. What happened next was a blur of Storm moving faster than any natural animal should, the creature shrieking as his glowing teeth tore into them. Mia stumbling back, her foot catching on a root, a clawed hand reaching for her ankle. Then suddenly, Storm was there, his massive body between her and the horror. With one final, earth-shaking roar, the creatures retreated into the woods, but not before Mia saw the deep gashes they'd left in Storm's side. Back in her room, Mia pressed a towel to Storm's wounds, her hands shaking, but as she watched in awe, the gashes began to close on their own. The blood evaporated like mist. Storm's fur regrew before her eyes. He nuzzled her hand as if to say, "I told you I wasn't ordinary." Just before dawn, Mia heard scratching at her window. A single word was carved into the outside sill. Soon. And from the woods, an answering chorus of howls rose into the night. Mia's fingers trembled as she turned the brittle pages of Willowbrook's 1972 police records. The faded typewriter text told a horrifying story. June 12, 1972. Third child reported missing this month. Search party found only peculiar claw marks near the woods. July 3, 1972. Local farmer claims to have seen a black demon dog standing guard at the elementary school. July 15, 1972. Disappearances stopped abruptly after the dog appeared. No logical explanation. A yellowed photograph slipped from the file, a class picture with 5 children circled in red. At the bottom, scrawled in frantic handwriting, "They took the unprotected ones first." That night, the full moon painted Mia's bedroom silver. She awoke to the sound of bones cracking. Storm stood in a pool of moonlight, his body stretching, his golden eyes burning brighter than ever. Mia watched in stunned silence as his claws elongated into gleaming black talons. His fur darkened to pure shadow. A ghostly blue flame flickered along his spine. For one terrifying moment, he looked less like a dog and more like a legend come to life. Then he turned to Mia and spoke, not in words, but directly into her mind. "The cycle is ending. They grow stronger." Mrs. Peabody's cottage smelled of dried herbs and candle wax. The old woman didn't seem surprised when Mia burst in with Storm at dawn. "You've seen it now, haven't you?" she asked, pouring tea with shaking hands. "The true face of your guardian?" As the steam curled between them, the truth spilled out. The creatures were called shadow stalkers, ancient beings that fed on childhood fear. They returned every 50 years when the veil between worlds grew thin. The Black Hound was no ordinary spirit, but a sacrifice, a human soul bound to protect the town's children. Mia's blood turned to ice. "You mean Storm was a person?" Mrs. Peabody's eyes grew distant. "The last guardian was a boy named Daniel. He vanished in 1972, the same night the attack stopped." Back home, Mia pressed her forehead to Storm's. "Is it true?" she whispered. "Were you one of them?" Storm's answering thought image flashed through her mind. A teenage boy with kind eyes, a desperate bargain made in moonlit woods, the agonizing transformation into something more. Tears burned Mia's eyes. "And now it's my turn to help you." As night fell, the signs were everywhere. Every mirror in town reflected shadowy figures that weren't there. The church bells rang at midnight without human hands. Children's drawings all showed the same thing: a black dog fighting monsters. Storm paced relentlessly, his phantom flames growing brighter. Mia could feel it too, a pressure in the air, like the moment before lightning strikes. At exactly 3:33 a.m., Mia's bedroom window shattered. Clawed hands had scraped a new message into the glass. "Tonight we feast." Storm's answering snarl shook the house. Somewhere in the distance, a child screamed. Mia bolted upright as the child's scream echoed through Willowbrook. Storm was already at the window, his phantom flames casting eerie blue shadows across the walls. Outside, the town had transformed. Streetlights flickered like dying candles. The wind carried whispers in a language that hurt to hear. Dark shapes slithered between houses, their two long limbs scraping against pavement. Storm's voice burned in Mia's mind. "They've broken the rules. The veil is torn." They ran toward the elementary school, where the scream had originated. Halfway there, the air turned gelid. Storm skidded to a halt as a translucent figure materialized before them. A teenage boy in 1970s clothing, his eyes the same gold as Storm's. "You remember now," Daniel's ghost whispered. "What I was. What you must do." Mia's vision flooded with memories not her own. Daniel as a living boy, discovering the Shadow Stalker's ritual site. His desperate bargain with something older than the town. The agony of his transformation into the first Black Hound Storm whined low in his throat, a sound of recognition. Daniel's ghost pointed toward the woods. "The stone altar still stands. To break the cycle, you must remake the pact. But the price..." Mia already knew. Her hands shook as she buried them in Storm's fur. "It takes a human soul to become the guardian." The ghost nodded grimly. "And this time they'll make sure no one volunteers." The school playground was a nightmare tableau. 5 children frozen in terror, surrounded by creeping shadows. Their parents slumped unconscious nearby, faces twisted in silent screams. At the center, the tallest stalker grinned with a mouthful of needle teeth. "Little guardian," it crooned, "you're too late." Storm's answering roar shook the earth as he charged. What followed was chaos. Storm moved like living lightning, his phantom flames burning stalkers to ash. Daniel's ghost fought beside him, spectral claws rending shadow flesh. Mia grabbed a fallen branch and swung at any darkness that got too close. But there were too many. A stalker's claw grazed Storm's flank. He faltered. Another struck Daniel's ghost. He flickered like a dying bulb. The lead stalker laughed and reached for the smallest child. In that instant, Mia understood. She threw herself between the monster and the child. "Take me instead!" The world went silent. Beneath the blood moon, at the edge of the woods, something listened. The stalkers recoiled as blue fire erupted from Mia's outstretched hands. Storm howled, not in pain but in triumph, as the flames seared the monsters back into the trees, sealed the torn veil with a sound like a slamming tomb, engulfed both Mia and Storm in a pillar of light. When it faded, only one figure stood there, tall, dark-furred, glowing golden eyes now filled with human understanding. The children gasped. Daniel's ghost smiled. In the new Black Hound, part Mia, part Storm, something entirely new, threw back its head and laughed in a voice that was both canine and girl. 1 year later, Willowbrook's children tell stories of the two-spirit hound who watches from the woods. Parents leave offerings by the old stone altar, fresh-baked cookies, handwritten notes, ribbons tied around the guardian oak. And if you stand very still at midnight, you might see them. A massive black dog with flames licking his paws. A girl-shaped shadow with glowing gold eyes, always together, always watching. Waiting for the next time the veil grows thin. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales like this. Until next time, take care.